Morning Glory with Mike Graham. I can't wait to get stuck into it. The big story this morning, though, has to be the migrants, doesn't it? Because this situation in Ireland is going to cause a real problem for the EU, isn't it?
This is a massive story.
Yeah.
And it really puts them in a sticky situation. I'd love to know, I know the number is 80% of migrants that have entered the Republic of Ireland have come from the UK, but do we know what the actual number is?
Well, nobody's seen that number. I haven't seen that number. I suspect, like all things regarding people from countries where we don't know where they're really from, nobody knows the numbers of migrants who are even in this country, never mind who've gone to Ireland.
No, so it'd be really interesting to know just how many that is, and if that is proof that the Rwanda scheme is working. I suspect the number might be a little bit lower than maybe perhaps some people are hoping it might be. But it's certainly really interesting and puts our deal with France in a really complicated situation and forces the EU to negotiate, because Ireland has been a massive voice of supporting the EU throughout the whole Brexit process, and I don't think they'd want to lose that ally.
Also, Ireland have had a big problem of late, haven't they? Because there's been a lot of, unrest, shall we say, in the streets of some of the cities in Ireland because of their incredible increase in the numbers of asylum seekers who have come to Ireland.
Yeah, it's going to come at a huge political cost in their next elections, and it's a massive issue for everyone on the street.
It is. Front page of the Times says Irish seek to return migrants fleeing the UK. So basically they're trying to bring in emergency laws which would mean that they can return these migrants to the country where they came from, which immediately, as you say, would give us the right, presumably under that emergency law, to return them all to France.
Exactly, and it's not necessarily a legal right, but it certainly gives us a right in the narrative.
Yeah.
And it's really important how the Prime Minister, I know we often joke between us about how he can fumble anything, like anything. He's given gold and he turns it into crap.
Yes, he does, I'm afraid. That is a talent, I suppose.
Yeah, it's the opposite of when life gives you lemons. He just makes worse lemons.
Right.
But I think that it's really important here how he uses the narrative for his political success, because whatever Ireland says about we're returning them back, he just needs to repeat that.
Yes.
And then he's got the EU in a sticky situation. I think he's going to be really happy with the news he's waking up to today.
The thing that I find the funniest coverage of all of it is the front page of The Guardian, because their headline says, typically, Home Office to detain UK asylum seekers in shock. Rwanda move, i.e. The Home Office is actually going to now start detaining people who have come to this country illegally, which a lot of people would say is what they should have been doing in the first place.
Yeah, I am dubious because of how I know a lot about international law and how last minute it can often be.
Yeah.
I think people will get on the planes. I really do. I don't think the planes are going to take off.
I'm very dubious, like you, that they will ever take off with anybody on them. But I think I'm quite in favour of the Home Office, which apparently is launching a major operation to detain asylum seekers across Britain today.
Yeah.
And that might explain why so many of them are going to Ireland, because they don't want to be detained. Yeah.
I think it's going to be huge, and people are going to be rounded up in their numbers. But, yeah, again, where are they going to put them? Because I know our detention centres are really overcrowded.
Well, we don't really have that many of them.
Our
and
infrastructure
all of these places that they were supposed to be commandeering. I mean, I know the one that I know because it happens to be down in a part of the world where I go at the weekends, in Bexhill. It's a place called North Eye, which was a former military prison, has been used since then, but not recently, for a sort of training centre for Emirates staff on an airline. But it's not fit for, you can't put anybody in there because it's not actually ready. It's very dilapidated, and I don't know where they're going to put all these people. Yeah, no, I'm unsure as well. Everywhere seems to be very overcrowded. Yes. But I think the next couple of days are going to be massive for Rishi Sunak, because this is, it relates to a lot of the policies, his flagship policies. Yeah, so it really is going to be big. It's also going to be a big week for the government in all sorts of ways, because we're going to be speaking to Mel Stride coming up a little bit later on in the show from the Department of Work and Pensions. He's going to be telling me about the story on the front page of the Times. Depressed and anxious face losing their benefits. Millions on disability benefits face the biggest welfare reforms in a generation, and the way that it's being written suggests that if you've got depression and anxiety, you could lose money, and I'm sure that's not the intention, is it? No, I find this story fascinating because depression and anxiety is such a, let's be honest, it's a very broad term. It's a big area. There will be a few people with depression and anxiety who might have very severe PTSD and might really genuinely not be fit for work. Right. But this is an interesting development because we know from statistics that
we're creating a generation of young people, the most depressed and anxious generation.
And the least likely to want to go out to work as well.
So, yeah, this is a really interesting development, because actually I think a lot of...
Pardon me for the rustling of the papers, it's part of the paper review, do you know what I mean?
A lot of... It's essential.
Anyway, sorry, carry on.
A lot of doctors would actually agree, and a lot of psychologists coming out and speaking about this now. It's kind of a rejection of the norm at the moment.
Yeah.
That the worst thing you can do for someone with depression and anxiety is not send them to work.
Yes.
Is make them almost accommodate. For depression and anxiety, to treat it, you have to not accommodate it.
Yeah.
You have to do the opposite of what your brain wants you to do.
And that's what the problem is, isn't it, with the 9 million people that we've got who are now called economically inactive. Some of them are students, some of them are on disability benefits, some of them are on universal credit, but there's a whole phalanx of millions of people who are literally not doing anything to generate income for themselves or for the country, and that can't be sustainable.
It's not sustainable. It's a lot of people. So I think that we do have to have some level of review of it. Of course, people's disabilities need to be taken seriously.
And do you think this might become a real battleground, though? Because Labour have also issued a statement saying that today they're going to be unveiling their new sort of mental health strategy, which is going to be giving more power to people to struggle, to help them with their struggle with mental health. But the Disability Brigade, it says on the front of the Telegraph, disabled people face being stripped of monthly payments and given vouchers instead of a benefits crackdown. So it's one or the other, isn't it? So they might not take money away, but they might give them vouchers so they can't spend it on specific things. That's always an issue, though, isn't it?
It is an issue for me, specifically with disability, and I know people lie and I know people pull a sickie, but I'm always on the side of disabled people here. Like, let's empower them. I don't think giving vouchers to people that genuinely incapacitated, I don't think it's necessarily fair.
No. Also, vouchers is sort of a government initiative which doesn't exist in the real world, because if you can get vouchers for something, you can sell them on the black market, and that's what will happen.
It's ridiculous, because also telling disabled people how they should spend their money, I do think disability benefits is really important that we keep. I think any fair society would do it.
Yeah.